Hey guys, Carl with the Tinkerverse here. So, have you ever gone to do an engraving and it comes out looking like this instead of looking like this? So in this video, I want to take a few minutes and talk about why and when you need to invert your image, as well as take a look at a couple of different ways to do this in LightBurn with both raster and vector images. So if this has ever happened to you, stick around, you may find this useful. The reason you'd want to invert images is there's substrates out there that when you engrave them, the engraved part will actually turn lighter as opposed to darker. So if you're dealing with like a black acrylic or slate coasters, for example, when you do your engraving, the parts that the laser covers actually turn lighter, which is opposite from what you're going to get if you're engraving something like a lighter colored wood, for example, where what the laser hits is going to turn darker. Let's take a look at a couple of examples here. I did these keychains of this manatee yesterday, and in the keychain on the left, you'll see that I forgot to invert the image. So what happened is I actually got a negative, which is not what I wanted. When you look at it, sure, it looks okay, but it's not right. So if we compare that to the image on the screen, what you'll notice is that it actually, it did what it showed on screen here. The dark parts are what got engraved and the light parts are what got left alone. So if we take this and we put that side by side with the actual end result, it looks like it did exactly what I told it to do. It engraved away the dark parts. Now, because the substrate acts backwards, so what I engrave becomes lighter, I actually want to engrave away the white parts, not the dark parts. So that means I need to invert the image. So there's a couple ways to do that, and it depends on the file type you're using. If you're using a raster file, so these are both PNGs here. This is the one I started with, and this is the one with a background removed. So a PNG is great because it's a high quality image file that allows you transparency on the backgrounds. So at first, when I bring this in, this is the original file. I can right click this and go to adjust image, and here in the layer settings, there's a toggle for negative image. If I turn on negative image, it does just that. It flip-flops everything. What's white becomes black, what's black becomes white. If it's grayscale, it'll be some variance in between, but it'll invert the image. And so what that does, it won't look any different on screen, but when I look at my preview now, that's what I want. So again, if we look at this against the end result of what I want, you'll see that all this red is traversal and the laser's not doing any engraving here. And all this black in here is what the laser's engraving away. And in this case, because of the way the material reacts, black becomes white on the engraving and what's left alone stays black, or dark if you're, dark gray if you're dealing with slate or whatever. Now, the problem with this image file, you see all this black around it. Well, that's because there's a white background. So it thinks that I want to engrave that away. And sometimes there may be a reason that you'd want to do that. But in my case, I don't want to do that. I want to ignore the background. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to remove the background from this and get a finished image like this, that when I adjust that and it's negative, you'll see all that black surrounding it goes away. So if I look at the preview, again, the reds are the traversals, the blacks where it burns. So that's what I want. So to get that, if you have a photo editor, great. If not, there are free tools online that will allow you to do this quick and easy. So let's look at a simple one here, which is pixelcut.ai. So pixelcut.ai is going to allow me to import my image. So I'm just going to drag and drop it here. And there's my image with the background I want to remove. And I'm just going to click on background. And what you'll see is it's going to go through and it gives me the checkerboard behind it, and that's my transparency. So if I compare the two, you'll see that it removed my white background and left me with the transparency. And it actually does a pretty good job. So from there, you can just click download it to your machine, and then import the newly background removed version back into LightBurn. And so you'll see what I did there is, again, adjust image, and I'm on negative image. And when I look at the preview, I don't know why it keeps defaulting to invert, but when I look at the preview, that's exactly what I want. So that's a quick and easy way to do it with raster images. But now vector images are going to be a little bit different. So vector images don't have the option to do the invert, or the negative image like a raster image does. I can look at it in the preview, and I can look at what it would be if I inverted it, but it doesn't actually invert it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the LightBurn offset tool, and I'm going to apply a 0 offset. So let's highlight this. I'm going to hit the offset shapes, and I'm going to apply a 0 offset to outward and outer shapes only, and hit OK. Now, when I look at this, it's inverted on screen, and when I look at the preview, it's inverted in the preview. And again, if I compare this to my good keychain, it's only engraving away the parts in black. So that's just a little trick of using offset to basically create a layer that encompasses the image and flips it all. And the concept behind that is very similar to this. If I take a shape, a filled shape in LightBurn on a layer, and I put another shape on the same layer that intersects it, everywhere that it intersects, it flips back and forth. It inverts it. So you'll see if I just keep drawing circles in here, everywhere where there's an intersection, it flip-flops. It flip-flops from black to white or white to black, from filled to unfilled, unfilled to filled. So this is just following that same process, and really what I'm doing is I'm just applying a shape around the entire thing, and you can see there it just inverts it, everything that's encompassed in it. So same concept. And now when I engrave that, I get the results that I want. One more thing just to touch on from the keychains video. One of the reasons that I convert these to vectors, so I would take this and I would Alt-T to trace that as a vector. One of the reasons I would want that as a vector is because if it's not, I can't apply my offset for the cut. So when I select this and I select my offset here and bump it out for my cut, and then let's change that, it creates that blue cut line, or a line layer that I want in this case, that becomes my cut, so I can cut out the shape. If I try to do that here, you'll see that offset's not even an available option. So when I'm dealing with raster, I can't do an offset. And if I try to do a rubber band, create rubber band outline, it creates it as a square because it looks at the entire boundary. So even with the background removed, this image has a defined width and height, and the rubber band doesn't adhere to what's visible. It adheres to the actual boundaries of the graphic. So unfortunately, there's not a quick and easy way to do an outline on a raster image like that. So converting it to vector is still the quickest and easiest way. Now, if I did want to do this as a raster image for some reason, if I wanted the grayscale capability of this, what I could do is I could create a copy of this as a vector, and I don't want to delete the original. So now I've got two of them, and I can create my offset and then just bring my offset over and line it back up, and then just delete this away. So that's just a cheat to do a very similar process. You just create the vector, create your outline, and then drag it over your raster, and now I can engrave this as if it was grayscale. So anyway, hopefully that helped, and just a quick hit on why or when you would need to create an inverted image for your engraving. If this video was helpful to you, please take a minute to hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up for the video, and we'll catch you next time.